Bienvenidos a Disrupt Everything, podcast series by Isra García. Reinvéntate a ti mismo y cambia lo que más te importa.
This is Isra García, and this is your podcast, Disrupt Everything podcast, and also web series, because we are recording on video also at the same time. And as I'm talking in English, it means I have a very special guest, an international guest. And today I'm recording live. Well, it's not live because you will hear in 1 month, I guess. But I'm recording from Shaolin Temple Europe. I've been going through a 5-day, 6-day bootcamp program focused on Shaolin Arts, and I can say it's a experience. It's definitely a really vital experience, and still need some reflection. It's been a hard training days. It's been a lot of learnings from inside and from outside. As the guest I have says, there is no outside or inside. There is just one part. It's been great. It's been great, and I will leave in the show notes the info about Shaolin Temple Europe. I'm doing a report on English and in Spanish, and you will be asking who is the guest. Well, today I have the honor and the pleasure to interview Shifu, or that is to say Master Shi Heng Yi, headmaster of Shaolin Temple Europe, and with more than 30 years on Shaolin practices. This is the guest for today in Disrupt Everything podcast series. I'll be back with you in a few minutes.
Disrupt everything. Si no puedes pensar más grande, piensa más ridículo.
Well, it wasn't 5 minutes. It was in a few seconds. I have with me, as I said, the headmaster of Shaolin Temple Europe, something I discovered through YouTube. In fact, I was just confessing that I did 180 days straight on the videos I saw on YouTube. The first day I discovered it was before COVID-19. So I spent my COVID-19 thing just learning about Qigong, the practices and all that the master Shi Heng Yi is gonna explain us. Welcome, and thank you for being in the podcast.
You're welcome.
The first question I had for you was, can you share with us your top life highlights, experiences, and why? Your top highlights, the things that...
Well, when I look back from this perspective right now, I wouldn't really say there's something that stands out. And I also don't have the feeling that it somehow has already reached some peak or some end. So I consider that continuously going through these days, this is my top highlight, to be still able and live this way of life that I have. And one might say that it kind of is like a dream life that I'm living. But on the one side, there were many influences and many choices that I took in my life that made it possible. But at the same time, I also think that other circumstances, meeting other people, being exposed to different types of teachings, all of these things have helped me in a way to just be where I am right now. And I just continuously keep on walking, and cannot tell you where it's going to go, but yeah, the highlight is to be here.
What's the choice that you felt like has to make a bigger impact in your life?
Well, I think in some former podcasts, maybe also, I shared already how I actually grow up. And the short version is that with the age of 4, my father started to put me into a martial arts school. So I think without this initial starting point that I got in contact with the Shaolin Arts, maybe things would have turned out differently. So I stayed actually throughout my whole life always within the practices of the Shaolin Arts, and there was not really a serious point where I ever would have stopped it. There were some ideas when I was still young that I could do other things, but ultimately my father gave me no choice than just to continue with what I started with. And my conscious choice, in a way, if you like to ask it in this way, was probably with the 24, 25, after I finished all my studies, that I said, okay, I just want to make all this practicing of the martial arts, the way of thinking, the way of developing yourself, and also the way on how to look at your character and at character traits, to make this the center of my being for the moment. And so that was the choice, to also build up this organization and share all this knowledge that helped me a lot, also with people that maybe do not have the possibility to meet the right people right away, or to travel to foreign countries in order to learn. And yeah, and like mentioned earlier, this is one of the reasons why we are called Shaolin Temple Europe, because we want to make this knowledge available to everybody, especially here in Europe, where the culture maybe is a little bit different and where you have to use different explanations, different perspectives, different models, but in the center, I think it is the same core that throughout the whole world, when you are being exposed to the Shaolin Temple, you're going to discover.
And what does the Shaolin Arts, what does it means to you? And because it's growing, and the impact is that almost every boot camp, every monastery on time is full. So what does it mean to you?
Nowadays, we have so many different Shaolin practitioners in this world, so that's why I can really only speak about how I see it. In the very beginning, what motivated me, also as a child, to keep on practicing was everything that I saw about Shaolin, which means all the physical abilities connected with the training of martial arts. So certainly in the beginning, it was purely an outside attraction that I liked. I also wanted to become good in the acrobatics. I wanted to have a strong body, and I wanted to make those nice forms. I also wanted to feel encouraged and strong enough to be able to stand confrontations. So that was the initial beginning, what Shaolin meant for me. But I think it changed throughout the years. And for myself, I just discovered that there are so many similarities in the physical activities that you're doing, the mindset that you are having while you are doing the physical activities. Also in regards to other aspects of life when you are not standing at the training field. So, how you feel about the rain?
I hope the computer feels good.
Maybe you want to cover the PC a bit?
Yeah.
So, just with something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real nice color.
Oh,
I think now you need to improvise.
thing that happens. And what's according to your experience and also achievements, the term self-mastery?
Probably this word self-mastery somehow popped up very much after the TEDx talk.
I will
But
put the TED talk in the show notes also. So
when I use the word master or mastery, it means that in a specific area where you have invested a lot of your lifetime and have invested a lot of your energies also, you have become very, very good. Better than an average person who did not have the training in those specific areas. So even nowadays when we talk about an electrician, there can be electricians which are masters. Yeah? There can be carpenters which are masters. So master means there's one area where you have become very, very good. And now we're talking about self-mastery. So self-mastery means you have become very good, very proficient in something related to yourself. One of these things can mean that you are able to just remain in balance and just remain in peace and just remain calm, where other people normally in your situation would lose their mind, would lose their patience, would lose their temper. But you have found something about yourself. You're able to adjust yourself. You know what is influencing yourself, and you know if you want other things to let you influence or not. So self-mastery in this term only means it is a way of learning more about yourself in order to become less independent on the circumstances that maybe happen to you while you are walking through this lifetime.
we can say maybe this rain through the interview, right?
And we had sunny and very, very hot days the last 5 days, right? And it was very, very exhausting to train. There you were wishing that it would be raining sometimes. And now you are just preparing everything perfectly fine, and then suddenly it starts to rain, see? But for me it's something very nice. Because what do you want to do? Who you want to complain about right now? There's nobody to complain about this rain.
Indeed, no. Indeed, no.
We still continue our talk as long as all the machines are still working.
It still works. I'm just checking.
And
And yes, still working. Still working there?
Yeah, a bit risky, don't you think?
No, this is not risky.
Still working, yeah.
Okay. Well, still working. So, is there any process or steps or method that you can describe for walking this path of self-mastery that you can elaborate?
On a very basic level, the first thing to develop is to learn something about where you are spending your attention. Yeah? If you don't have your own attention in the focus, it's very possible that on a daily basis your mind and your attention is driven a lot outwards, because every day you could walk around with headphones, so all the time you're just listening to the music, or you're spending your time and go on Netflix every day. Every night you watch a movie. Every evening you meet friends outside and have some dinner with them. There's nothing bad about it. But it's very easy nowadays, especially when you are maybe also having the possibilities to spend a lot of your time and a lot of your attention with things that are externally oriented. So that means the first step is, if you want to change something about yourself and learn to adjust something about yourself, you first must become aware of what areas you have inside of yourself which can be adjusted. So, and this is why we sometimes call it that you have to start turning the view around, and with the eyes not watch outside, but the eyes turn inwards. And this is where then, for example, those concepts come from, that there is this outside world, there is this inside world, and what we are doing in the monastery is a lot about dealing with things that have to do with your inside.
And regarding the monastery, why Shaolin Temple Europe and why in Europe?
Everybody who's teaching here in this monastery either grew up in Europe or has a very strong relationship to the European people here. And even the Shaolin Temple in China is only 1,500 and I think 29 years at the moment. But in the core and what is being taught and what you are able to learn from all of this knowledge, I think it doesn't have a timestamp. It is something very, very much embedded into this complete lifetime. And that means that this core is very much dependent on the cultural framework where this teaching is being spreaded. Yeah? So that means you always have different words how to express what you try to teach. And this was 1,500 years different than 1,000 years before, different 500 years before, different nowadays on the same planet, but in different countries. Yeah? And that means you need to, in a way, also understand how people are thinking, what type of worries, what type of thoughts people have, let's say, here in Europe, if you want to somehow support them and help them to just find something stable in their life. Because in Asians, they have Asian problems, and in Europe, they have European problems. Yeah, and in the United States, they have American problems. Everybody has their problems. And so sometimes you need to speak the language that the people understand. Yeah? And this is also one of the reasons why we founded this organization, the Shaolin Temple Europe, because I think in Asia you have many monasteries, different types of monasteries already, and they all have their way how they can support the people and how they can speak to the people. But here in Europe, if you are interested in Asian philosophy, and then more precisely even in the Chan philosophy, or in the Linji school of like the Shaolin Temple, then it's not so easy. Yeah? If you don't have somebody who understands both cultures, the core what is being taught, but also the cultural background from all the people that want to know more about this.
This is the reason why I came here straight from Spain, because I couldn't find places which integrate. So at least I felt so when I saw the videos, check the website, and if I recall, it started in 1998, Shaolin Temple Europe.
It started before that.
Yeah. What have you learned from this lifetime of people coming and going and warriors, finding, you said before in the theory, like happiness. So what have you discovered from yourself and maybe being reflected in other people?
I mean, you have been here now also for 1 week.
Still working.
And you see we are like located in the middle of nowhere. So we're only surrounded by forest. And for many people, sometimes there's the impression that this temple or the monks or the people that are living here in the monastery, they are isolating themselves from the outside world. And just somehow spend time in practicing something for themselves. But see, the light in this monastery, the food that we are cooking in this monastery, the chair that you're sitting on right now, all those things, they didn't come for free. So that means on the one side, this complete organization also is like any organization in this whole world. Organization also seen as a system, an organism which needs to keep alive, which needs to have some input and which also needs to create some output. In this organization again, then we have different people in different areas working in the kitchen, making the martial arts training, making the Buddhist ceremonies, going shopping. So also different areas. So as such, even here in our monastery, we are a small world in a bigger world. And the problems are the same. They are just from another scale. They are in such a scale that you are able to more calmly observe them and also try to find out, okay, so why is, for example, is this person there today, let's say the cook, why is he so angry today? And so you also start to ask yourself more and also observe more how the interrelations in this small community is. Because we say, when you cannot solve the small problems that you already have in your small family, in this community here, between your brothers, between your sisters, between your grandfather, your father, if you cannot solve them, then what should I go out in the world and solve the problems of the people that I don't even know so good, like the ones that live with me every day? And it is an illusion to say that we don't have problems here. It's just that we have more time, or we take ourselves more time in the moment where we face a problem to really find a solution which is working, but which is working on a sustainable time frame for a longer time. And that means a monastery is also the place to try out a lot of things. And ultimately, to come back to the question, what have I learned? I still continue to learn every day. But in everything that I see, the maintaining of balance in order to achieve harmony, I think this is the key entrance to solve many, 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 many conflicts. Once this basic principle or this basic approach to always try to find the proper harmony is embedded into the way of how you live your life. It's never about dominance. It's never about being submissive. It's about finding the right balance, how to maintain harmony. Yeah.
Where can we get started on finding that balance, that harmony? And I think it leads to the next question. I learned that Kung Fu and Qigong is linked and it goes one with another. So it has this link something to do with finding balance and harmony, or am I correctly, or am I generally wrong?
In this word harmony, you can only harmonize something, or you can only balance something when you know at least the two ingredients that need to be balanced. Yeah. So if you want to achieve balance, you need to know what should I balance there. Yeah. So it always starts with observation. You need to observe which elements are there that you would like to balance. And how do you know that something is not in balance or that something is not in harmony? You simply know because you don't feel well, or there's something telling you this is not correct, or it should not be like this, or you don't feel well. Yeah? This is when you feel there's some disharmony. So to the question, where do I start? Find something in your own life at the moment or in the last week that made you feel not okay. So, and then start investigating it. What was not okay? Which area is it? What was not okay there? And then you figure out, and what are the two points supposed to be that you want to balance there? And sometimes, or oftentimes, is the balance between the expectations that you have towards persons, towards situations, towards things, and then the reality that you're meeting. If those two things are not somehow harmonized, if you don't find a way to make those two areas merge into one, you will constantly be in the struggle of this is how it should be and this is how it is. This is I want and this is I don't want. Yeah. And yes, so the first step is just to discover or look inside yourself and see what is there out of balance and what needs to be balanced. So, and like I said earlier now already, in order to find it inside of you and in order to be able to really go with your mind and ask yourself and investigate yourself, your attention must be with yourself. So that's why the first step again is try to not get distracted too much by outside stimuli. So number one, so go to a retreat. Yeah, make a retreat or do a retreat. Just retreat. Okay. Once the attention is there, and once you know it's there, now this attention is able to penetrate deeper. And you can start observing things about yourself. So, and how do you do this? How do you get the attention to a retreat? How do you retreat? You can practice martial arts, you can practice Kung Fu, and you can practice Qigong in such a way that you will realize that all these practices are the perfect methods to exactly spend time with yourself. You realize for yourself when we were having the hard training and you were pushed to your limits, in the moment where you are reaching the limits, you don't have time to listen to the birds singing. You don't have time to think about any problems. You don't dream about any movie and you don't dream about any holiday. The only thing you care about is what and how can you make something with yourself. Concentrate more, tense more up, stay more focused. It is something you are figuring out for yourself, how to maintain this concentration. But the reason why you made it is because you made some Kung Fu, because you made some training. So you use the training method, you use the Kung Fu, you use the Qigong in order to get back to yourself. And this is why the Kung Fu and the Qigong are two very, very helpful methods in order to get access again to yourself.
In this camp, I learned exactly what you say, how to connect with all my energy and use it as a structure for building or for focus the energy, what flows inside, or the energy that flows inside of me. And of course, this is thanks to your teachings. Can you explain us the fundamentals and why is this important? Because in the last questions, I was going to ask what Kung Fu brings you and can you explain why people, but you already said it. But what's that the fundamentals that underlies behind? Because I was here and now and pushed to the limit and I couldn't think about anything. Exactly as you explained.
I feel very honored that you say it's my teaching, but it's not my teaching. This is the great part about why I'm really happy that nowadays we still have the Shaolin Temple. Not just this one, but all Shaolin practitioners in this world. Because it's no one's teaching. This teaching doesn't belong to anyone. It could belong to everyone. You only need to discover it. And maybe the reason why you felt it, other people feel it. You can only feel things if somebody is transmitting in a way they are feeling towards you. Yeah, so you cannot learn from someone who doesn't possess what he's teaching. You can't do it. Or you learn the wrong things. If you learn something from somebody, maybe this person has something what you at the moment don't have. And because you can feel it throughout the whole week, from all the people here, from all the atmosphere here, from all the spirit that all the people carry here. This is something that also makes you and makes the energies wake up to something, that there is something different still possible and still existing. Yeah. So this is when it comes to how to transmit a teaching. Now, what's the fundamental of all of this? The fundamental is that you can either sit here right now and focus on the trees, or focus on the wind, or you can sit here right now and just focus on your breathing, or focus on your heartbeat. But it's always the same. It's always the same source which is perceiving all of these things. You could say that you spend time and pay attention to something on the outside, like the wind. You can also say you pay attention to the expansion of your chest. Now you maybe would call it something on the inside. But there is no inside and there is no outside. It's always the same. It's just a question of where you are placing your attention to, and what is filling your mind and what is filling your awareness. Everything that's in your awareness, that's real. It's just that on a normal average day, if you don't pay attention to such things, then you're taking many different aspects in your life maybe too serious, and let yourself be influenced too much by them. And this is why we need to find a way to make you realize again there is only one point of time. There's only one way of realizing, which is when you're 100%, your body, your mind is together. Your body and your mind, the body-mind connection, they must always be together. And when I push the body, and when I push your body, and it reached the limit, this is one area where I don't know why, but it happens that body and mind in those moments are very close to each other, if not the same. So, and if you have this on a regular basis, you will understand that there's only that one moment. Even sitting here, there's only this one moment.
Can you share with us what a normal day is for a Shaolin master?
Yeah,
Normal day is kind of tricky word, but
it's busy. Okay. I have my training days, and I have days where things need to be organized. But the regularly schedule here inside the monastery from all of the disciples normally starts at 6 o'clock in the morning and then goes until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the evening. And I think I mentioned it many times before already, and people can also read it on our homepage then. But
we'll put the page in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, once you see the plan, you will realize that it's quite busy also for the disciples, and everything is like perfectly timed. And there's no really some spare time for you to do whatever you like to do. And now if you think about it, we're in the 21st century. Many from this complete group over here are still young. Yeah, and you have this world on the one side which is full of possibilities. You can, if you have the money, you can travel to every country that you want to go. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's so much different restaurants out there. You can eat whatever you like to. You can go to the cinema if you want. You can meet friends if you want. But if you look at the plan from the disciples, you realize there's nothing you can do what you want to do, because the structure tells you what to do. So I think it's really important now also to just share this idea why we think that this structure is helpful. You cannot wake up when you want to wake up. You cannot eat when you want to eat. You cannot do what you want to do. And why is that? Because we think that it's not good to just do the things you feel like doing. Yeah, let's say last night you go out for a party and so you're very drunk, and so then you wake up at 11 o'clock in the afternoon. Then first of all you go to the fridge and eat something. Yeah, 1 hour later you're hungry again, so you run again to the fridge and get something to eat. And then you say, oh no, still destroyed, you sleep again. And then you think, actually now I'm in the mood to go into the city. Then you go into the city, and then in the city you see some nice girl, and then you think, oh, now I'm in the mood to cheat my girlfriend a bit, so let's cheat. It's not good to do only things that you feel like doing. Even if you think that this is freedom, we don't think this is freedom. Because all of these things is more to us like the mind is telling you and is directing you all the time what you're supposed to do. The mind tells you, I'm hungry, so you follow the mind. The mind says you're sleepy, so you follow the mind. You stand in Mabu and the mind says, oh, it's too exhausting, so you stand up. You make push-ups, the mind says, oh, already 2 push-ups, I cannot make 3, you give up. It's not good to listen to the mind. So, and this is why there comes the external structure in. Because when the mind says, oh, it's time to eat now, or I want to eat something, well, then the monastery tells you there are just 3 times where you're eating. At 8 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock. And if you feel like waking up at 7 o'clock, then the monastery tells you, no, you wake up at 5:30. And if you want to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, then the monastery tells you, no, you go to bed at 11. So what you are learning is, it doesn't matter what your mind tells you. You just follow something different here. How long do you have to keep up the structure? Until you realize that you don't have to be the slave of your mind.
Is that freedom?
In our approach, this is the beginning to freedom. To not be enslaved again only by your mind. Because the mind is way less than what you can become. Or the mind is way less than what you actually already are. But the mind is too dominant in many people's life. So all of this structure here is for what? To realign and to give you a new perspective about how you should see the relationship between you and your mind. And the relationship is that you need to master the mind, and not the mind is mastering you. These are two different ways. Yeah. And yeah, this is the purpose why this monastery has such strict rules in many of these things, but it's working for many. For many centuries, it's been working. And so that's why we still think it's a good approach. But ultimately, you will not need any type of external structure anymore. Once you have understood the core, once you have the essence, I think then all structure you can lay down.
What are your most important habits, or your most important habit?
Loki. My most important habit is to not forget the training every day. But besides that, I don't really have too many habits.
How long do
At
you
least
train every day?
3 hours in the minimum, 7 hours maximum, depending how long you need.
What is discipline for you, and why everybody is looking for attaining it, and how can someone be disciplined? Because something that is really present here is discipline. I think discipline is a way of freedom too.
Well, from my understanding, the disciples are the perfect example of discipline. Because discipline means you just do it, no matter what you think of it. You don't want to make it, you still make it. You want to stop the training, but you still make it. There is no excuse, because you just simply have, in a way, the order. You have the order and you keep the discipline. And once again, but this is a type of external discipline. What you would like to develop is self-discipline. Just like self-mastery, just like self-responsibility, all of these things, they are supposed to come from you. And I don't know why everybody is looking for discipline. It certainly is something which is very, very helpful, but there are so many other character attributes and character traits which are equally important. Yeah. It's just that maybe that word discipline is something which has a strong connotation to maybe other things. It is important, but there are many, many more things that you are able to work on. You can learn to become more patient. You can learn to live a life with less judgment. You can start observing more instead of judging. You can start to live a more honest life, less lying to other people, less lying to yourself. It's not just discipline. And so in the past, sometimes, there are questions, so what is the most important? I don't know what's the most important. There are so many things that are helpful. Everything is important.
I'm gonna go through I have a lot of questions. I'm sure for a round two, so I'm gonna go for the two last questions before the rapid fire questions, and is: do you believe anyone can master his life? And yes, no, how?
Everybody in this world will have the chance and will have access to practice in what we call at the moment self-mastery. It's just that for some people the time is not right yet. Even if you want it, you cannot access it. But everybody will have the chance. But I cannot tell you when.
Is there any signal that maybe is the moment?
Yeah. I see when you start to see the glimpses of truth. When you see that the truth makes you feel free. This is when you start to realize there is something I can do. Only one of these moments must come. And if you pay more attention to them, more of them will come.
I was going to ask you what a to-do list for living a good life will look like for you, but yeah, in fact, I'm going to ask you that. What a to-do list of living a good life would look like to you? I know it sounds like work because sometimes we always want a receipt, but I just want to see how your spirit, your mind, your emotions, your body process what I living a good life is, and where I will start, or what I.
When you go into different cultures, into different countries, it's impossible to look for a role model of a good life. Because if I already start with, you need a job, well, what would all the people that in this life at the moment don't have a job? Does it mean they don't have a good life? No. When I tell you you need to have wealth, well, okay, what's with all the people in Africa that are starving? What's with their wealth? So there are many of these things which in the beginning make it maybe easy for you to get a feeling of security, get a feeling of safety, and therefore, because you are safe, you're able to open more up. But I think a good life is when you live this life to the fullest, regardless of where you are, regardless of in which life circumstances you find yourself in. There are so many things we cannot influence. It's not that I want that people are still starving in this world, but does it automatically mean now that they will never have the chance to live a good life? Everybody needs to find something, to find stability in whatever life you're living there. And even if it's in the war zone, it's hard to say if you don't live in a war zone, but what else should be the solution for the ones that are? They still need to find something stable there. Maybe they will never be able to leave their country. But even for them, there is the chance to find something stable about them and to make something good from this lifetime. And may it even be that in this complete war zone, they still have their close bond between their families, between their brothers, something like this. Something where they feel this gave me strength. This gave me power. Even something like this can lead to a good life.
Last but not lastly, the rapid fire question is just short questions.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
What's your favorite book?
I don't read.
The activity daily you can live without? The daily activity.
Alcohol.
That you can live without.
That I cannot live without.
Yeah. It was like, oh.
Still alcohol. No. Training.
The person has impacted you the most?
Both fathers. My real father and the abbot.
Your biggest failure?
Is it arrogant? Let me think now. I really can't tell you.
And your most successful failure?
Well, probably that I didn't stop the training.
The success you felt most proud of?
Nothing.
The most important thing. The most important thing in your life.
Being able to live it.
The move you have practiced the most.
The move?
The move you have practiced the most.
The movement, you mean?
The movement, yes, the movement you have practiced the most.
I think everything related to martial art, huh? Punching and kicking.
And your biggest challenge?
To expand all of this valuable knowledge to more people.
And if you were about to write a book, I hope it comes soon, what will be the title?
I think since everybody's asking for it, probably self-mastery, yeah?
I guess so. I hope so. And think about this. You are going to have you are going to have the front page of the New York Times. What message would you choose to appear in that front page?
I have gave my vow to not indulge in political statements, so that's why I cannot tell you.
And non-political?
There are many. One of them might be respect life.
Is there anything else you want to say or share with everyone who is listening to this podcast?
I'm very happy if people are listening to this podcast and maybe get some information out from this talk that is somehow also helping you and helping them in their lifetime. But I really want to say that it's important to put things that you hear, put things that you read, and put things that you see. You need to put them somehow into practice. And therefore, it's always good if you maybe have some examples that you look up to examples where you can feel how such a person is, and to just get the experience of what we are all talking about the whole time. Because these are all topics we can spend weeks and weeks and continuously just talk about it. But ultimately, you just need to live this peaceful life. You want to be peaceful? Live peacefully. Yeah. And
And also telling you that you are listening this podcast, that we might have a chance to have Sifu Shi Heng Yi in Spain. We work on that. We're working on that. So stay tuned.
must work very hard then.
We will. It's where people can find you on the internet.
I think on the one side is the official website from the monastery, Shaolin Temple Europe. I think you can link it later down. And then also, if somebody's interested in just some introduction to some internal or Qigong practices, maybe you saw there is the Shi Heng Yi online with all the free videos, so they can all just have a look there then.
I will share in the show notes. And also I wanted to address the people who is watching the interview, not just for the podcast, also for the YouTube channel. Thank you. I promise you 45 minutes. I go more than 45 minutes, so thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's been a real honor, real pleasure to have you as a guest in this Disrupt Everything podcast series. It's a podcast about reinvention, about self-mastery, and without a doubt, you are an example of self-mastery. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Right.
You've been listening and watching Disrupt Everything podcast series. I'm Isra Garcia. The class already started, so it's the last one. We might go and stay on time, which we are not. And remember every word, and remember what he said. The most important thing is putting this into practice. And if you want peace, live peacefully. I think it's a wonderful message to close this podcast and this video. I'm Isra Garcia, and disrupt everything. If not, you will be disrupted. Let's continue. The journey continues.
Esto ha sido Disrupt Everything by Isra García. Encuentra el riesgo antes de que el riesgo te encuentre a ti. Esto ha sido Disrupt Everything by Isra García. Encuentra el riesgo antes de que el riesgo te encuentre a ti.